Whether you're fighting, healing, caregiving, treating cancer, or simply searching for hope, this space is for you. Welcome to FU Cancer, where meaningful conversations meet powerful community. I'm your host, a registered dietitian and cancer advocate, and together, we're turning challenges into connection. Check out our platform on the web at fucancer.health.
Welcome to the FU Cancer Podcast. I'm Dr. Kelsey Loud, Chief Medical Officer of FU Cancer and Board Certified Physical Medicine and Rehab Physician, Fellowship trained in Cancer Rehab. We're joined today by Joe. Tell me how to pronounce your last name.
Faratzis.
I would never have guessed that.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Who isn't here as a headline or as a statistic. He's here as a man living through stage 4 colon cancer, navigating scans, side effects, decisions, fears, clinical trials, and the quiet moments in between. This is no polished narrative. It's just honesty about what it means to have your body change the rules on you. It's a conversation about vulnerability, resilience, and the parts of cancer people don't always see. This is Joe's voice, unfiltered, unscripted, and happening in real time. So welcome to the show, Joe. Let's dive right on in.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Kelsey.
Yeah. I would like for you to start by just sharing a little bit about yourself and what your role is with FU Cancer and how we ended up here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for inviting me to speak with you and on your platform. I appreciate it. I think it's always important to get the word out and advocate as much as possible for, younger people that may be coming upon this kind of diagnosis and aren't quite sure where to turn or having, feelings of uncertainty. I know I definitely felt like that. I was diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer back in 2019 when I was 29 years old and was definitely looking for information as to what was going to happen. I think it's fairly normal for the human mind to go to the extremes and you're searching for answers, and doctors don't always have those answers right away. So I share my story online, in hopes of giving others, perspective as to what it's really like having a stage 4 cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
And, I've been fortunate enough to work with FU Cancer in more of like an advisory role and help shape some decision making when it comes to the app. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you guys. So it's been good. It's been cool.
Yeah, awesome. So for those listening, Joe is one of our patient champions, and I can talk a little bit about that program later. Let's talk a little bit about your initial symptoms and what led to the diagnosis. And looking back, is there anything that you wish you had known or done differently or want others to know when it comes to warning signs and symptoms?
Yeah. So I was in very good health when I was 29. I was working out probably 4 or 5 days a week. I was feeling great. And yet over the course of a couple months, started to notice a very dull kind of, I call it like a cinching pain. I don't know. Pain is difficult to describe.
Yeah.
I feel like in the morning times when I would bend over and tie my shoe in the bottom right portion of my abdomen, I'd feel like a little, I don't call it like a cinching pain. But it was for a second, and then I would go on about my day and never really thought anything about it. And, over the course of the next few months, I started to notice some blood on the toilet paper after going to the bathroom. And it wasn't a lot. It wasn't like a scary amount. It wasn't every single time. It was just very sporadic. And, as a 29-year-old, I chalked it up to, as the majority of people do, thinking, I don't know, hemorrhoids or straining or whatever it may be. And never really thought, obviously, that it was cancer related. And yet those symptoms persisted for a few months, and the blood particularly became more consistent. And, I ultimately did go to a doctor to seek, answers for what was going on. And he asked me about, I specifically remember this. He asked me, like, do you have any problem with your bowels? And I'm thinking to myself, no, like, that's so crazy. Like, why would that be? Because I was talking about the pain in my abdomen, and he suggested I go get a CT scan. And you asked, is there anything you do differently? Um, I ultimately didn't get that CT scan because of the price of it and how much it was
Okay.
going to cost. And I think I really screwed myself there. Who knows what that would have caught,
Sure.
if it would have caught anything, but it was an opportunity for me to have gotten ahead of it probably. So seeing as though I didn't do that, I was continuing to have symptoms in which I finally went back to the doctor and asked for, I was talking about the blood that was being more consistent, and they referred me to a gastroenterologist for
Mm,
a colonoscopy in which they ultimately found the large adenocarcinoma
hmm.
in my rectum. So
Can I ask how long in between the initial, like when you went to see the doctor and wanted to get the CT scan, and then when you went to the GI doc?
that's a good question. I would imagine probably 3 or 4 months
Okay,
I
so
waited.
several months. Yeah.
Yeah, I waited several months. In my mind, I'm like, well, maybe it'll go away, maybe it's nothing, maybe this and that. And I don't know. I should have known better looking back, but now, kicking myself now isn't going to change anything. But
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to realize that, you should listen to your body, listen to those warning signs. And I don't know, like it's important. You have to be your healthcare advocate, and
Yeah.
I found that out the hard way, unfortunately. It's like no one's going to hold your hand and force you to go to the doctor when you're older.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it was a few months, unfortunately.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, I think there's things that happen in life that shoulda, coulda, woulda, but can't go back and change things. And I think we talked about, throughout the time that we've worked together, just the importance of advocacy
Yeah.
and self-advocacy and being your own best advocate. And I really respect that in you. So,
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's double click a little bit further on the topic of screening and further testing, like we've been talking about, specifically when it comes to patients reporting new or concerning symptoms to their physicians or mid-levels. And what's been your experience with this and talking about advocating for yourself as well? And what
Right.
challenges have you addressed and where have you found success with this?
Yeah. I was lucky to have a primary doctor and the gastro that I went to actually listen to me and all my concerns and my symptoms as valid, and were able to, refer me in the right direction and ultimately have my insurance cover my colonoscopy. But I was 29, and that is, well below the
That's young.
the screening age of 45. So I've heard from a lot of people online that I correspond with in the cancer world, so to speak, that find, pushback or roadblocks when it comes to wanting to get screened. Like they are aware that there's this uptick in young people with colorectal cancer
Yeah,
and they want to take initiative, but they either aren't, taken seriously by their healthcare provider, or the insurance companies will straight out deny their
sure.
claim to or request to get a colonoscopy. And
Yeah.
that it's, I think it's a really difficult thing to navigate. One of how do you bring this up to your physician?
Hmm.
I think it's important how you phrase it to your provider in
Hmm.
particular, that your symptoms or what you're feeling, your thoughts
Yeah.
about your body and the seriousness of it, to really get through so that they can also advocate for you. Because I think part of it too is how the doctor presents it to the insurance company, but it's
Yeah.
also important for the patient themselves to really like make yourself be heard and known. It's not just, oh, I think maybe this could be. You'd be like, no, like I know my body, this is
Yeah.
wrong, and so forth. I think being adamant and not being shy is, specifically when it comes to this kind of health stuff, you shouldn't be shy. You shouldn't be embarrassed. I know it's easier said than done. I know
Sure.
I was embarrassed. I still am embarrassed sometimes going to the doctors and they say, oh, where are you having pain or whatever? And I'm like, I really have to say this out loud.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, like that doesn't matter. Like who cares if you're embarrassed? We all have butts. Like we all have these same body parts.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some social taboo for some reason around it, which there shouldn't be.
Hmm.
And I think it just takes a little bit of time to like desensitize yourself to it in
Sure.
some respect.
Sure.
Um, but to come back to your question, I thankfully had, doctors that listened to me. But if you're finding that you're getting pushback or say you're asking for a test, I would absolutely recommend either looking for another physician or another outlet that could provide that for you. If you're looking for a colonoscopy, for example, there's also other kinds of tests that aren't necessarily colonoscopy that, colonoscopies are like the golden standard when it comes to getting tested, but there are other like fecal fit tests out there for people who are of average risk. But it's very specific, and I don't want to give like medical advice when it comes to that. But there
Yeah.
are other options out there as well to get screened.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate all that insight from your experience. When you mentioned it's important how you phrase it, and I think we've talked about this before, but for the listeners specifically, do you want to go into a little bit more about like what that means for maybe someone who's navigating this journey and just starting out and what tips or tricks that you might have for them?
Right.
Mhm.
For sure. I guess it's kind of interesting how I would word this, but I think ultimately what you have to think in like what insurance is going to cover, right? What their criteria is per se of like, okay, well, why are they going to say yes to one person or no to another? I think it's important for the patient to have the knowledge of what the actual symptoms are of colon cancer and colorectal cancer, whether that's rectal bleeding or abdominal pain or shifting weight unexpectedly or things along those lines, and see if those are lining up with what you're experiencing, and you need to verbalize that to your physician.
Mhm.
And even if it's just a little bit, maybe you need to like really accentuate like that is no, that's the problem. Like I'm really having this XYZ issue, and lay it out there and don't be timid about it. Like you really have to kind of not prove your case, but really state your case.
Yeah, be
Um,
confident about it.
exactly, confidently, and explaining like those specific kind of symptoms that would warrant a test is really like the checkbox that they need to hear in order to justify it. And if you can say that, then more than likely you'll be able to get through and actually get a test.
Yeah, and I think something that we've talked about in the past too, specifically from the physician lens, is when a patient comes to me and says, like, this is a new pain or this is a new symptom and this is really scary to me. I've never had this happen before. It's important that you pay attention to like what's going on and we get to the bottom of this.
Yeah,
To me, is someone that's taking their health seriously and like really is invested in figuring out what's going on. So, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so let's shift gears just a little bit here and talk about clinical trials. I understand that this journey hasn't been easy for you. And if you're comfortable sharing more about your experience and what aspects have been the most difficult and what's been easier for you or what you're looking forward to with it.
Yeah. Oh, looking forward to with it. I'm not sure any of it, but yeah, the clinical trials, I don't know what the majority of people think of clinical trials. I'll tell you my initial naive thought with clinical trials was that everybody that applied to one got accepted because obviously, like if you need to be in a clinical trial, they're gonna accept you. They're here to help you. They have this new drug.
Mm,
And yet, unfortunately, that's kind of far from the case. That at least in my personal trying to navigate this myself, I have found that it's actually difficult to be accepted into one, and you can be excluded for a myriad of reasons, even just at the whim of, say, the drug company just doesn't like you for whatever reason, and they don't even have to legally, go out and say, well, you didn't meet XYZ. They can just not want you to be part of the trial, and that's very disheartening. I went to my new oncologist here in Irvine, California,
mhm,
and was lucky enough to have him explain that there were some amazing clinical trials that are like perfect for the cancer that I have and my particular mutation.
mhm,
And that there's a couple going on. There was one going on at Duke, North Carolina, My mother and I flew out there, and ultimately, we were told all along, like, looks good, it looks good, and then found out the day
Mhm.
before, actually, no, we can't accept you because of whatever, whatever.
The day
Um,
before you were going to start?
the day before I was flying out there. So like
Oh, okay.
I had, booked tickets, whatever.
Oh,
It
wow.
happens, I
Okay.
guess.
Yeah.
But so there's one kind of thing where you get your hopes up as you find something online. And to the clinical trial point, it's difficult to even find these clinical trials. It's
Yeah.
not so I don't know. I wish there was an easier way. And as to the point of self-advocacy, it is ultimately on the patient
Yeah.
to find clinical trials that will work for your cancer type. And that's a whole nother aspect of it. If the healthcare system is expecting the patient who has cancer, who's looking literally for their last options to continue. And it's incumbent upon them to search this government database and
Yeah.
read through technical terms to somehow synthesize all that data and figure out, oh, am I eligible after reading through, the litany of, oh, this blood test and this blood test. I'm like,
Hmm.
I hope, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So it's long story short, yes, I've applied to or reached out to a handful and been denied or excluded from many. And it's difficult. Thankfully, I was able to get in contact with the actual drug company for the immunotherapy that I've been gunning for. And like somehow have been, very graciously being given access or allowed access to it now. So I'm in the works, or that is in the process, which is still a slow process of approval, even when the drug company says yes. But yeah, it is a whirlwind of ups and downs and rug pulls and getting your hopes up. So we'll see. I don't want to get ahead of myself and get too excited and say
Sure.
I think this is going to be awesome, but there are some good reports coming from it, and I can only hope that it comes through quickly and I can start quickly and that the cancer can go away quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, so I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah. I guess, I think we've talked about before, I have the phase one clinical trial experience. And from your perspective, did anyone on your oncology team, besides your physician, who I'm assuming talked to you about some options, help you navigate the world of clinical trials? Did it, like a nurse navigator, nurse sit down with you and say, like, this is step one, this is step two, or was that not an option?
Well, so I before changing to the hospital where I'm currently at in Irvine, my previous oncologist, after my most recent recurrence, didn't even suggest any clinical trials. He was suggesting I go straight to having an extremely invasive surgery, which would remove my entire rectum, my prostate, and my bladder all at the same time. And that was the option. And even when I told him, I'm like, I want to explore other things. This
Sure.
is like the nuclear option of changing my life. And he was like, no, this is really what we need to do. But
Mm,
I wasn't going to just take that as an option. So thankfully, I reached out to a few different hospitals and landed
got
where I
it.
am now, in which my oncologist there was the one who suggested this clinical trial to begin with. And it's only because of him that I know about this. But subsequent, trying to find other ones that are in line with it as well, or better, or different, like different angles,
Yeah,
has been on me to find myself. So I think your mileage will vary depending upon
sure.
the doctor
Yeah,
and every healthcare provider.
yeah,
But that's been my experience.
yeah, yeah. And that makes sense to me. Depending on the resources that are at the center that you're being treated at and the education and training. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So to tie things up for today, if our listeners want to learn more about colon cancer or watch some of your TikTok videos, how do they find you?
My TikToks. Yeah, so I'm on TikTok. My username is Radiant14%. It's kind of a nod to the very dismal 14% survival rate of someone with stage
Mm,
4 colorectal cancer. I share my story and try to, give some personal insight into the truth, I don't know, my life going through it. And yeah, would love to have you check it out. So I appreciate you giving me this platform and chatting with me and letting me share my story. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us and for giving us really the texture of living through a cancer diagnosis. You talk about the fear, the strength, questions, your resolve. And stories like yours don't just inform people, they stay with them. And thank you for your courage and for your candor. And thank you for being one of our FU Cancer patient champions. We do hope to grow this program and ensure that patient voices are heard as we expand our services. If you found this episode useful, please share it with a friend, a family member, or even your oncology care team. And be sure to visit our website, fucancer.health, to learn more about our digital health tool that's revolutionizing cancer care. Until next time, I'm Kelsey. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
The conversation doesn't end here. Join our community today at fucancer.health for trusted education, real community, and resources. We are here for you every step of the way.